Hello. Today I want to talk to you about a topic that's all over the news, Medicare for all. Now, let me begin by saying that this is a laudable goal. We should try to provide health care for everybody in this country. Providing health care for everybody in this country is the same idea as making sure that we don't have homeless, or that nobody goes hungry, or that everybody has a job. So I'm not arguing about the goal, I'm arguing about the issue of how we're going to do it. All right, let's go back many years. In 1957, the Russians put a man in orbit, Sputnik. We immediately decided that we had a laudable goal of trying to put a man on the moon. And it was a laudable goal. 12 years later, in 1969, Apollo 11 happened, and Neil Armstrong was the first man to walk on the moon. 12 years. You see, it took them 12 years to figure out the math, to figure out how to actually bring him back. They didn't run right out and strap a guy to a rocket and light it off and see what happens. But in large degree, that's what we're trying to do with Medicare for all. So let's dive into it a little bit. A recent Kaiser poll showed that 94% of Democratic voters approve of Medicare for all. 94%. Now you can understand why pretty much everybody in the Democratic field is running on Medicare for all, because their base approves of it. And 51% of the general population have a favorable idea of Medicare for all. More than half. So everybody likes it. Why? Well, that's because nobody understands it, and nobody understands how much it's going to cost and what it would actually do. There are cost estimates of what Medicare for all would cost this country of between $3 and $5 trillion a year. Now that's a number that's hard to wrap your mind around. So let's take a little exercise in math, shall we? All right, let's use the low end number, the 3 trillion. 5 trillion is just a little bit much for me to try to comprehend. Let's assume on the day Jesus was born, somebody opened up a bank account for the United States and they put $1 million in that bank account. $1 million. Every day, including Saturdays and Sundays, they continue to put another $1 million in that bank account. Every day since the day Jesus was born. And we found that bank account today and opened it up and said, hallelujah, look at all this money. We can pay for health care. Yes, we could pay for health care in this country for 89 days. Less than a quarter. 89 days we pay for health care with all of that money. That's how much $3 trillion is. So the issue on Medicare for all isn't that it's a good idea to provide health care for everybody. How are we going to pay for it? We don't want to just strap a guy to a rocket and light it off and see what happens. All right, there have been some ideas floated around and the math done on how we could pay for it. One way to pay for it is to add a 32% payroll tax on both businesses and individuals. 32% payroll tax, okay? Let's see what that means to actual people. Let's take a single teacher in North Carolina. Average teacher salary in North Carolina is about $50,000. With a 32% payroll tax, that teacher goes from paying about 12% of his or her income for federal taxes, that's $6,700, to paying 45% of his or her income to federal taxes. That's $24,000. That means that that teacher takes $1,400 a month out of his or her paycheck. But wait, he or she gets health care for free, so wait a minute, they get health care for free right now as part of their job. And I'm sure every teacher has an extra $1,400 in their paycheck they don't need every month. All right, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Doctors. Doctors make a lot of money. So let's take a doctor who's got a family of 4 and he makes $400,000 a year. Well, yeah, let's tax him. He's got too much money. So in that situation with a 32% payroll tax, he goes from paying 28% of his income, or $112,000, to paying 60% of his income, or $240,000. That's right. 60% of his income goes to federal taxes alone. We're not talking about state tax yet. Of course, he doesn't actually need that extra $10,600 a month. He can easily afford that to pay for free health care, right? Probably not. So if that's not a good idea, then what else could we do? Well, we could double the income and corporate tax rates. Double them. That'll pay for it. Now remember that doctor? That doctor now starts paying 70% of every dollar he earns over $200,000. 70%. Now come on. Really, 70%? 70% over $200,000? I mean, it's not like that doctor had to go to school for 12 or 14 years to learn their trade. It's not like they accumulated hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. It's not like they have to work weekends and be on call for emergencies at night. It's not like, wait a minute, it is like that. Matter of fact, it's exactly like that. Who's going to want to start going into these professions if after $200,000 you start giving pretty much all of it to the government? Okay, so we can't do a payroll tax, we can't do an income tax, so how about a national sales tax? A VAT tax, or value-added tax, a national sales tax where you pay a tax on every transaction in our economy. Well, that would only need to be a 42% VAT tax. 42%. Okay, so the average house in this country sold for $315,000 last year. If you bought that house, you would have to pay tax on that transaction of an additional $132,000 for tax. Now, the bank is not going to finance that money because it's not in the actual value of the house. So in addition to your down payment that you're going to have to come up with, you're going to have to find 132 grand lying around before you can buy that house. Boy, that doesn't work either, does it? Let's reduce spending. That's how we'll pay for it. We'll just cut government spending somewhere else. I mean, the military's a little bloated, isn't it? There are other areas we could cut. That's how we'll find it. We'll reduce spending. Okay. If we want to pay for it there, we're going to have to reduce government spending on everything that is non-healthcare related by 80%. Those old people don't need their Social Security checks. We don't need any defense budget, do we? We don't need the Department of Transportation. We don't need the Department of Education. We can cut the IRS. That might not be a bad idea. Let's hold on to that one. But that alone doesn't give us enough money. 80% cut in the rest of the federal spending gets us the money we need for healthcare. It's just not viable. It's not a possibility. Let's tax the rich. That's where we can get the money. Yeah, billionaires. They got so much money. Let's go ahead and tax them. All right, let's run the numbers on that. There are 600 billionaires in the U.S. right now. If we wanted them to pay for healthcare, each and every one of them would have to pay taxes every year of $5 billion. $5 billion. Now, there's a little bit of a problem with the math. There's only 100 of them that actually have more than $5 billion. The other 500 of them don't even have $5 billion. Ooh, that creates a problem. So let's see. How about if we take 100% of the money from the from the top 200, you know, Gates and Bezos and Buffett and all those guys. We take 100% of their money, top 20 billionaires. And we take 100% of the money of the bottom 500, okay? Add all that money together to pay for health care. We're still short by $750 billion, and we've only paid for 1 year. And we haven't even paid for that. And now we don't have any billionaires. So I guess we can't tax the rich either. The problem is this. Changing who pays for it doesn't fix the cost problem. It just moves it around. It's like paying for your mortgage with a credit card. The expense didn't go away. The interest just happened somewhere else. Another way to look at this. Fixing our healthcare cost problems by just making it free for everybody in a Medicare for all scenario is a little bit like saying you can solve alcoholism with an open bar. It doesn't work. Now, you're probably sitting and go, well, it's easy to throw stones at everybody else and point problems when they. What's the solution? Okay, I'll tell you. The prescription for the cure, I'm going to outline in 10 items over the next 10 episodes. One item each episode. These are things that I believe will start to fix the underlying cost problem. Who finances it and who pays for it is not the issue. How do we get to the root problem? So I want to leave you with this. And I wish I could take credit for this, but I can't. I heard this story from a Dr. Frank Sweeney who does a podcast called Straight Talk MD. It's really good. You should check it out. But here's the story he tells. God is sitting in heaven, and he's looking at the most prosperous country in the world, the United States, and he's feeling very good. But he realizes we have problems. So he decides to do a miracle. He's going to fix one of our problems. So God appears in the office of the head of the Senate, Mitch McConnell. And he says, Mitch, I'm here to help you out. I'm going to fix one thing, whatever it is. What do you need, Mitch? I'm here to do a miracle and I'll fix it. McConnell thinks for a little bit and says, you know, here's what I'd like. See, everybody would like to visit Hawaii, but a lot of people don't like to fly, and many of them can't afford the airline ticket. So if you could build a bridge from Los Angeles to Hawaii, that would be great. Then people could just drive there, and every American would be able to visit it. And God looks at him and says, Mitch, that's 3,000 miles. Do you understand how hard it would be to build a bridge 3,000 miles? Do you understand how much concrete I'd have to put? Mitch, I'm going to have to put gas stations on it, hotels, restaurants, because you can't do it in one day. Do you understand the No, Mitch, you can't have that. That's ridiculous. It's too much. Pick something else, anything else. That's ridiculous. I'm not building a bridge from Los Angeles to Hawaii. And Mitch thinks for a little bit and says, oh, well, I really wanted the bridge. Well, if you can't do that, healthcare. Man, we got problems with healthcare in this country. Could you fix that for us? Would you do that miracle? God scratches his head and says, "So how many lanes did you want on that bridge, Mitch?" Therein lies the problem. Thank you.